Hey campers, George here, back in the man cave. Remember this guy? Very nice. Now one of my favorite knives that I've restored. It's an Ulster Knife Company Boy Scout. Look at this guy. Remember this guy? I made a sheath for it. I didn't really like it. Let's make a sheath for this that looks like a Boy Scout sheath. You know, the standard belt sheath, looking all nice and prim. And we'll put my bling on it as well, I think. Let's have at it. So what I'm talking about as far as the sheath for this guy, the reason I want a more traditional standard style belt sheath was this is a Boy Scout. They made a lot of them. A lot of companies did. You know, the sheaths you get for them are typically standard. And I wanted to keep it that way for it. Just your standard, what I call box style sheath. And I think it's more in line with the knife. The only difference is I'm going to put my little stamp on it. So this is the leather I'm going to use. I have a bunch of leather that came from Texas, Terrell, Texas. And it's leather like this. Really nice leather. The problem is it's not the color I want. And this is pre-colored. So I can't change the color. I really like this. It's nice and thick, very supple, nice leather. But I can't change the color. So I'm going to go with my old stuff that I can color it any way I want. Yeah, I know. I'm going to do British tan. I think that's very traditional. So I'll start doing measurements. I'll show you how to measurements. If I forget to tell you something, I'll do a voiceover to add to it. So here we go. First of all, we got to figure out the dimensions. Now, like I said, it's a box. It's going to be a box one. So I'm going to need something like this, which might just be the right size. And this is actually a template, you can see, for a sack. And I'm thinking a good size. So we got to get this in. So you got to make sure that when you shrink over it, you have enough on the sides to put your stitch in and trim off and that sort of thing. You don't want to make it, I know you don't want to waste leather, but if you do it carefully, you want to give yourself some extra just in case. So that's what we're going to do now. Things you got to remember about the molded piece, the box piece, is that you don't want the knife sitting in there, because when you open it up, you can't reach it, even though it's got a bail. So typically what I do is I'll put this here, drop the bail down, and that's how deep I want it to sit in there. So if I do that, I have more than enough here and to stitch. So I'm going to mark the template to show how long I want it. Right there. So we're going to use that mark to line up on here. So that's the depth I need. And it just so happens this piece will give me enough extra back here that I'll be okay to mold it that way. So we need 3 sides, top and the 2 sides, and a little bit extra on the sides where the stitch line's going to be. So what I normally do is measure how far in I want it for my stitch line. Then I measure the 3 widths I need, and then the same stitch line. This stitch line, you need to give yourself enough that when you put it on and try and squish it all in and mold it, that you're going to have enough left over to do your stitch line, because it shrinks and moves and stuff. And while we're doing that, I'll tell you that I've had a lot of requests for a list of tools that I use when doing sheaths. So what I'm going to do is in the description below. I will put a list of everything I use. I'll put links. Don't expect you to use the links, but you can go to the links, find the name of the tool in the link, and then search it for a better price. I can tell you that Amazon probably will have the best price, just so that you know. I want the stitch line to be about 1/8 from the side. So I'm going to give myself a lot of room here. I'm going to give myself 1/2 inch right there. So now this area here is what's going to fold over at the bottom where the stitch line goes around. Now I'm going to do my 3 measurements, and I line up my mark and roll it. 1, 2, 3. So I've got the depth and the two depths and the width. So there's my mark there. So there, I'm going to double check, because that's the side, the top, the side. That's the side, the top, and the side. So now I've made it too far because I thought I was doing a barrel. That's the mark we want, and we need this distance, which I said was 1/2 inch. Now we measure the width, 3.5 inches exactly. I nearly gave myself an extra 1/2 inch. Is that a bad thing? Probably not. I'm going to stick to 4. Why? I don't want to cut this too small, and it doesn't fit. So I know I have plenty of room here. See there? It's 1, 2, 3. I got more than enough room. The depth, my marker that I marked on the bail, is there. So when I mold this, I'm going to put it right there and mold it all together. Happens to be 2 3/4. So that's really what I need for the depth. But now you have to remember, you got this area and the bottom again there. So I'm going to go there. And then this same distance here. I'm going to make it a little bit longer. I'm going to give myself extra again. So it's 1/2. I'm just going to give myself a little bit more. We're going to go 3/4. No, we're not. Man! 1.5. Check it again. I'm on my mark here. You can see it there. It goes down and then comes out. We got plenty of room there, so we can cut this all out. While I have your undivided attention, I bought myself an actual leather cutting knife, allegedly. It wasn't that expensive. I thought it was really nice. So, and you can see it here, nice big handle. And I'm going to be doing some heavier leather work, I hope, later on. And I'm going to need something more than this. So I'm going to give this one a try. And when I bought it, the deal included the tool for trimming the edges of your leather to round them off and clean them up. So it was a good deal. I couldn't walk away from it. So, yeah. So I'm going to cut here. And remember, always use a ruler with just some cork on the back. It stops the ruler from slipping. You see how easy that moves? You have the cork, it sticks better. So you don't get any slippage. Let's see how well this cuts. It's a big knife, isn't it? Huh, pretty good. Oh yeah, it cuts. I need to learn to press harder. Oh, it did come through. So that is the box. So this will sit in like that, and we'll squish it down, and we'll get it formed. So to form to this box, you're going to need to clamp it down. So you're going to need a nice solid piece of wood you can clamp it to as the backing. You're going to put this on and use these to hold the form. So you'll put this underneath, you'll line up that mark, go down and clamp it on. Now you can wet the whole thing. I don't think it's necessary. If you just wet the areas that you're going to be folding, that works fine. It takes less time to dry, things like that. So let's try that first. But before we do anything else, I need to put my maker's mark on there, right? So we got to put this guy on. So I want to get a rough area where it's going to be. I don't care if it's off center a little bit. It just gives it character. I just want to be close. So there we are there. And I'm going to try and get in the middle here roughly. Like that. Actually, I want to go there. We want to come down, wrong way around. There's the bottom of it. So that's about where it's going to be. I want to make sure it's roughly centered. And I'm going to take this and put it right there. There's where it goes down. Give myself a little bit of room and put it at a slight angle right there. So that's where we're going with it. So I want this stamp there. Now, I don't want it too close to the bottom. I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Make sure I have it right. Like that. That's where I want it. So I'm going to wet that. Don't need a lot. And I'm going to go right there. Right there. And here you can see I just used 2 steel pieces to get a reasonably tight fit on there, and just squeezed it in on the vise. This is okay, so we have our bling going on. You can't really see it. It's just dirtier in some areas, but not in the others. So now we've got to form it. Like I said, you need. It just allows the leather to stretch easier where it's wet. And then we have our blank. Gonna put it there, line up my leather on it like that. And now we got to clamp it down, which means like that. Now this area here is really important. If you don't do this right, it looks a little hokey at the bottom. So I'm going to really wet there. I'm wetting the wrong area. This side, wow, I nearly made a mistake there. There's my mark. Right there. So now I need to press this down. All the way. You're going to have to work it down. So here you can see I have it clamped down. Now this just needs to sit and dry. Now I'm looking at the edges here and I have the problems that I was trying to avoid. It won't, I mean, it doesn't, it's not a big deal. It just doesn't make it as clean as I'd like to. Ideally, when you're using something like this, it would be nice to have a piece of board that is shaped square to this, that you could clamp down flat and push this into it to stretch the leather through. You'd probably get a cleaner one. Maybe one day I'll come up with something. Okay, so it's been an hour or three. It looks pretty dry. Let's see how well it worked. Yeah, that's what I was worried about. See the crinkle? I need to come up with a jig so I don't have that problem. It's not going to affect it. It just makes it a little bit harder to sew there. I think I'll wet it and squish it a little bit more. Maybe not. Maybe we can do that. That might be okay. Right like that. There we go. The question is, that fits just fine. I was worried about it being too tight. So now we're back to the drawing board. We have our box and that goes in there like that. We need enough to come over to make the flap and wide enough to sew it and trim it off. So let's see how much of a lid we need here. I want it about there. I don't want to cover too much of the logo. So that gives us plenty of room there. I think that'll work. So now we have a length. So there we have our backing, which means we're right there. Does that give me a long now? We're looking good there. Now this is going on a belt, so we're going to need a belt slip for it at the back, the strap for the belt. I like a nice big width. Stops the knife from moving on your belt. How long do we want it? I'm going to say 3 inches. Look at me. Done this before, right? So we got 3 inches, which is right there, of the ruler. It's a really good width. I think it's an inch, right? Inch and a quarter. Let's cut them out. Once we have them cut out, we're going to dye everything. Going to use my new cutter still. Because it's still sharp, allegedly. I really like it. It's heavier than using a utility or a one of those little ones. You should be cutting with one cut, by the way. I didn't. I did 2 there, and look what happened. Why am I doing something? All my bragging about buying the right knife, right? Look at the tip. 3 cuts. 4 cuts. We persist. So I'm just marking the strap position here. I'm actually going to punch the holes and everything for this before we put this on the other side, because this stitching is going to be behind here. So now I've got my pieces I need to, and I got my strap. I know my strap is going to go there like that, and I'm going to stitch it on and then stitch this on the other side. But before I do that, I want to mark everything, punch holes in here for the stitching, mark the stitching, and then color it, and then we'll stitch it all together, drill the holes, and whenever it's dry. There. Now, I don't like sharp corners, so I'm going to trim these off now. All I'm going to do is cut a triangle off. Oops. Oops. Slowly. Like that. No. So now I have these marked out. I'm going to color everything, and then we just line this up centered on here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That center punch is going right there. And so will that one, and we're nice and level. So I'm going to use British tan. I have some more. This is almost done. But we'll have enough, and if we don't, we got another bottle. So what I like to do is just go around the edges, color it in. I will say, I did get a comment the other day asking me why I don't just dip it to get a consistent color. Well, I don't want the consistent color on these. I like to, I don't know, call it shading or whatever. I just like that look. So the more coating you put on, the deeper it gets, the darker. And all I'm going to do is just make it inconsistent instead of a consistent color. A lot of this is going to be trimmed off, remember. Now you've got a flap coming over this way. So you're going to want this colored as well. This is going to go there. Now I like to touch up afterwards. We need to, because I'm going to be trimming things off, so you're going to edge it and things like that. Here's our belt strap. Okay, they're all dry, stiffened up nicely. Now we need to get this onto there. Got to drill the holes and stitch her up. Once that's done, that onto there. Doesn't take much. I'm at the right side, that's the top. And we need to be 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. And 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. So I'm ready to do my stitching. I've got my blunt needles. Got the thread. This is the thread I wanted to use. It kind of matches the lighter side. And how much thread you need is what you're going to do. It's just the length of your run. And this is, I'm going to do a saddle stitch. So I want 7 times the length is what I use. So I got 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and a little bit for luck. Rather have it too long than too short. And how I thread my needles is I put the thread through like that, pull it up, bring my needle and put it through the thread just like that. I use blunt needles, by the way, like that. And you're going to pull it through, and you pull it tight, pull it down a little bit close, not all the way to your needle. See that? Now it won't come out when you pull it through. It keeps the needle on your thread. Same thing on the other side. This is wax thread, by the way. Okay. Oh, I can't believe this. It's like that. You pull it through. And if you pull on it, it'll straighten out like that. And just give yourself a little bit of a gap there. So what I'm going to do, another thing I do, if you look here, I've drilled the holes and I've drilled an extra hole outside. The reason for that is I like to put a loop over the ends here. It just helps hold this better. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to go through there. It's a little tight, so you need a helper. Just pull it. Same length either side. Want to keep it even. And I'm going to go through that piece, that hole on over the end, like that. And I'm going to come back. You notice I'm pulling the thread away so that I can push in and not go through that thread. You don't want to poke through that thread. And a little tight again, so just need some help. And you want them to be equal lengths. That. Whoops. And now you can see what I'm talking about over the edge. So work away from yourself like that. And what I'm going to do is this is going to go through there like that. Pull it through. I'm going to pull it back. And this one is going to go back through that hole, coming back through this way. Just like that. Now we're starting a new stitch. So once again, the same side goes through there, pull it through, pull it away. What I'm actually doing when I pull it tight like that is you see it opens a gap, and that's where I'm going to put this needle in. And the reason for that is you don't want to poke through that thread. If you do, you won't be able to pull it tight. And there you go. You got your saddle stitch going. I'm going to finish. And here you can see I've gone through both sides, and now I have the stitch on the inside, and you can see I actually my light just died on me. I'm sorry. It's battery and it just died. Hopefully you can still see that. I came back 2 stitches on the inside to bring them back here, trim them out and burn them off. So you just want to, I'm going to trim them off. It's like that. Burn them, push them in, and they seal. Going to repeat that on that side, then we'll be done with it. We've got the belt loop stitched on, sealed up. This sits like that. This goes there, and that goes there. So, it's late, way past my bedtime. Time for me to go to bed. Tomorrow, we'll mark stitch lines here, drill them, stitch them, trim everything up, and put a snap on. Morning, campers. Time to get at it. Before I went to bed last night, I just glued this on here. The great thing is I thought this was going to be a little bit too big, The leather has shrunk and it fits in there, no rattle. So now I have to mark out the stitch lines here, trim everything down, and then put a snap on here, and we're all good, allegedly. So here we go. So I've marked out the edges, and now I'm just gonna mark the drill holes, then we can drill it and stitch. Once again, I go over the edge here, just like I did on this one, to hold it together. Going over the edges here really keeps this in nice and tight. That's where a lot of the stress is. You see my punch marks there? I don't go here. What I do is I go back 3 spots, line up those holes, put them on again on the line here where I want it, and what it does is it keeps this line nice and straight. And just repeat on this side again. So I've punched up the lines. Now I need to drill the holes, and then we'll stitch it up, and then we'll get this sorted out and put a snap in here after we trim everything down. Well, looks like I missed one spot right there, but here you can see the drill holes are nice and straight. Everything looks good. I just got to drill that one quickly. I wanted to show you something that I haven't used before this way. One of the reasons was I couldn't find a way to clamp this on, so I put a wood base here, and I have a little adapter so this can clamp on. The reason is when you're doing a long stitch, you want a third hand. And I used to use this all the time. I would just use this piece on its own and just sit it on the table, but it still moved too much. Then I remembered I had this, which this is all one thing. And it allows you to adjust all sorts of ways on it. So I can turn it here, which is a comfortable position for me, and tighten it down. Now I wanted to show you this. This bar here allows me to move it in, where I want it. The other thing is it comes with an adapter. This guy here. And that, you can see, fits in there as well. And you can mount your Dremel to this and use it to hold your Dremel to do whatever you need it to do. So this attachment and this came as one. It's another piece you might want to think about instead of having to buy a stitching horse. They're kind of expensive. They're very nice. You can sit on them and they hold the leather nicely and everything. This works fine for me. So what I do is I'm just going to adjust it, because I need to have a little bit extra room, and you have a quick release so you can pull it back, and I'm going to stitch from here down and around. So I can put this in, use the quick adjust to get it fairly tight. Oops, in there. And then you have your final to hold it in. It doesn't have to be in there hard. It just wants to hold it reasonably still while you stitch. Really handy to have. Something you might consider if you're going to be doing a lot of leather work. There'll be the usual links below from YouTube showing you this. Anyway, I've got to cut my thread. It's got to be 7 times the length of this, and then saddle stitch all the way around. So that's what we're going to do now. Oh. I need my tool to pull it through. You want both sides to be the same length, so make sure you check that. And I'm going to take this guy. This here I'm just going to pull back. And I'm going to take the other one, which is tangled. I'm going to pull this one towards me, which opens up a little gap in the hole, so that when I push my needle through, which is a blunt needle, it's not going to poke into this thread. You don't want to go through the other thread. If you do that, you won't be able to pull your stitch tight. Just give it a little tug, and then this guy comes back, and you just keep repeating. You want to do the stitches the same way every time. So I have this guy pull back towards me again, take this one, whoops, ooh, tight, and I've changed the size of my drill bit that I used to drill. I've made it a little bit smaller. It makes it a little bit harder when you're doubling up like this, but it's a nice tighter fit. It seems like it will take forever. Once you get going and you get into a rhythm, it actually moves pretty quickly. And you get used to just repeating what you're doing. Pull it through, you want to keep your stitch tightness the same, and repeat. I'll carry on. When I'm done, I'll show you. So I'm coming to the end of the run, and if you look here, you can see I got to the end, went there, and I've actually come back 2 stitches on myself. So these 2 stitches are actually doubled up. Then I'll cut off here, burn them off, and it gives a little bit more strength here. And should any of them snap or anything, this will hold a lot longer, which keeps it together. It does take a lot of the strain up top here. See, I ended them off there. And there we are there. Time to trim everything down, put the snap on. Really disappointed in this. Very disappointed in this. I'm doing something wrong. I just don't know what it is. It works fine that way. Just that way it don't work that great. I don't know, maybe there's different knives. I don't know. I just do what I do. So there, we trimmed it down there. Now we've got to get this all set up and to put in a snap. So I marked the hole here. I need to match it to there. I can punch it through, mark it so that I can punch the holes to put in the snaps. Now I'm using this snap here. It's a very plain metal. It's actually a Tandy snap, and it's the gun metal. And they come in packs like this. They're fairly inexpensive, and I like them for the sheaths. Now you can get snaps that look like this, which are very nice. I just feel they're a little big for this sort of thing, but they're great for a big fixed blade knife sheath where you have a strap going over the handle. You're snapping it in. It makes for a nice snap on a big knife. And you can get these just about anywhere online if you look around. Amazon has them. This is a nickel one. You can get the Buffalo. You can get Harley Davidson, Zippo. You can get all sorts of snaps like this. You just have to search a little bit. So now I've got to punch the holes for these, and I have this, and it's just a hollow punch set. It's a 12 piece, more than I need. It gets pretty big, but I got it $12 at a swap meet, so brand new, and they work great. And you can see all the sizes. So if you, next time you're at a swap meet and you're looking for hole punches, go to the tool guys. They'll have them. I do have a small set here that I got when I first started leather, but they worked fine, but they're a little too small for some of the stuff I'm doing. I keep them in here. You got to get that through the hole. So the hole you punch, you don't want it too loose, but you don't want it too tight. And you can see how the hole punches are. They've got a pretty thick rim on it. You want to make sure it fits in there and it doesn't wobble too much. It's about as big as you want to go. If I go a size smaller, it looks like it's a perfect fit. Leather self-heals immediately. So you punch through it, it stretches and then comes back. And then you struggle to get it through. So give yourself a little bit extra room. So now got to punch the hole, and what I do, you want to get it as centered as possible. I'll just do that and mark it, and I can see how off I am there. A good hard punch and you should be through sometimes. My desk moves a lot. Ideally to put it on the floor and punch it through works better. You need a solid backing. See how I'm struggling to go through? I'm just going to put it on the floor and punch it through. And there I'm through. Pull it out. Leather is in the tip. You can push that out. And now I can put this through, which is always a good time. Just want to push it through there and line it up with the hole. Just like that. And then I'm going to put the male side of the stud on here, just like that. Now I have to punch that over so that it folds over and holds the stud in. This comes with a lot of the sets you buy. I have a bag full. Put it under there, slip this underneath. Now I've got a really nice hard surface. The trick here is don't leave that gap. Push down when you punch in, otherwise that pin will bend over. Like I said, I'm going to have to use a hard surface, so I've got to go to the ground. But what I'm going to use is this punch here, and it sits right in there, and you punch down and go around. Let me get this in here where I want it. Push down so that I'm tight, flush on there, and then you just tap and move it around like this, and it'll spread out. So now I'm going to the ground to do it on a hard surface. So I'll put it on the floor because it's a nice hard surface, and now you can see the ring inside is bent around, and you're just going until you're tight enough that this is not going to move. So now we're going to repeat for this side, punching the hole and putting the female that goes on there, which these two go together. So I have my hole. This will go there, and the female goes there. Same thing again. The difference is I can use this order to hold that in. Like that. Put that on there. Now I can hammer down without damaging the snap. So there we have the snap is on there. Now I need to decide how I want to do this. How do I want this flap to look? Get it checked to make sure it fits. Should be tight. No movement. Perfect. So now what do I want to do? I can't leave it square with these sticking out like this. So it just doesn't, these things. So I'm going to have to reduce it a little bit, and I think I want to go the width of that. Bring it down and come around and back up. I think that's what I want to do. Man, this knife is terrible. So now we've got to paint all the edges, clean everything up, make them look nice, round them off, and then put some gum on there, burnishing gum, and that'll finish it off, which is a lot better suited. That's too thin, unfortunately. They come in different sizes, obviously. The one that knife came with, which is what I was interested in, was too small. Well, you win some and you lose just about everything else. So same thing again, just trimming off these edges. The burnishing gum rounds these off and cleans everything up, but it's always nice to just get rid of most of the... Another way you can clean the edges up is with some sandpaper. Now, if you go to the leather people, they'll actually send you almost like a giant nail file, just not a steel-based one, but like a wood-backed one with sandpaper on it. And you can use it just to smooth out these edges. It's like that. Get off all that fluffy stuff. Let's paint the edges. The burnishing gum will clean it up, I'm hoping. Lesson learned. It's taken me a while to get over it. Can you tell? I'm on a budget. I can't afford to spend money on stuff that doesn't work. Aren't we all, right? This really helps the burnishing gum clean up these edges, round them off. I always like to do this, and that is darken this piece here with a lot of this dye. It gets rid of all the fluffiness underneath and makes it a little bit smoother. It's like that. And you can edge it up, make it, I like to have that darker edge there, which is going to happen with the burnishing gum anyway, but this helps. Okay, so we've let this dry now, and now I'm going to burnish all the edges. And what that does, I use burnishing gum now, and what burnishing gum does is it cleans up all the edges, and you'll see what I mean. Right now, if you look, although I've sandpapered it, it's still rough. And the burnishing gum sinks into here. We'll put some on, let it sink in, and then you rub it using a burnishing tool. Now, this allows you to get into different areas. It's kind of a weird looking tool, but it'll let you get into places you can't. And the thicker the leather you're doing, you got your different sizes there. So this is the gum I use, and I found it on Amazon. It's fairly inexpensive, and it works really well. So all I'm going to do is edge all along here with gum. all around these edges. Now you can be generous or, just put a little bit on. I recommend you do it, leave it for a while, and then redo it maybe a couple of weeks later, and it really cleans it up. You want to get on all the edges that you want to burnish. We'll let it sit, and then we'll give it a rub with the burnishing tool. So it's been sitting there for a while. It's kind of sort of soaked in. Going to take the burnishing tool. You can see what it looks like now, and I'm just going to rub the edges here. You don't have to press hard. You're just going to round them off really, and really get that burnishing gum in there. And now look at the edging. Cleans it up nicely. It looks like it's worn in. Doesn't make the leather look unfinished, and it just looks like it's worn in. Gives it a good look. And gets rid of all the fluffy stuff, which you don't want. So we have no sharp edges anywhere. And there you go. Just going through final inspection with the boss. She gives the nod or no. And she's not too enthusiastic today. Having a day, she is. So here's the sheath here. It's a very typical, what I call just a box sheath. Standard, square type. Nice and easy, straightforward, very traditional. Just the stitching is just really easy to do, fairly straightforward. Nothing fancy, you just got a basic snap on it. I did put my maker's mark on there because I could. And of course the knife sits in there, comes out nice and easy, drops right in, snap it closed, no movement. Initially when I did the stretching of it, it was a little loose. I was a little concerned, but then as soon as I colored it and it dried, it shrunk, which makes it a really good fit now. Leather will stretch, some of it will stretch. Typically, so there you go. I know, well, long video. I had a lot of people ask me in the comments on other ones I've done if I could go through the process, show how to do each step, how I go about it. All my sheaths are custom, really. They made for the knife I'm working with. A sheath like this will fit a lot of campers. It's a pretty standard size. This Ulster camper, Boy Scout, I should say, and you can see it's from Ulster Knives, is very typical. Camp Kings, Camillus, Imperial, Colonial, all make campers about this size. This one is a Boy Scout, obviously. And they'll all fit this sheath because they're almost all the same size. So, ideally, I should make a template. I have the wood template, which works just fine. It's close enough. But if you're going to make a bunch like this for a bunch of knives that are all the same size, make a template. And like I said, molding it, you want to, ideally you would have the piece that goes inside here, and you'd have a piece that goes over, so you can just press it together, totally soak it in water, press it down, clamp it, and it'll form perfectly. You won't get things like these little edges are not perfect. It'll really make it nice and firm. There you go. And also people ask tools. There'll be a list below. YouTube now allows us to put in links below to the different things. You can use that as a reference. Go there, look at what you want. That's what I want. And then shop around or just use the link. I do get commission if you use the link. I don't expect you to. A lot of the places are not your typical where people shop. So if you like to shop on Amazon or eBay or a specific shop, maybe they'll have it. At least you'll know the name and you can search it and Hey, we're all on a budget. Look for the best price for the one you want. Just saying. You got the sheath on the back here. I'll put that on quickly. Here you can see it there. It sits on there nicely. It doesn't wiggle too much. You've got a nice wide enough piece across the belt that it's not going to do this or that, flop around. Sits on there nice and tight. You can see that. Here you can see it next to one of my barrels. This has a Victorinox in it. I carry that a lot, just about all every day. And here you can see the camper, and it goes in there just fine. And snap it in. Whoops, snap it in like that. So there you go. All it takes is practice. Be consistent in what you do, especially on the stitching. I'm going to show you something here. See the stitching there? If you look at the stitches, they're at a slight angle all the way along here. But on the back side, look how straight they are. Now, that's determined about which side you go through and come back on. If I'd done the other way, it would have put the straight stitches on the front. I just think this is a different look. Is it a big deal? It does not make any difference. It'll work. Just be consistent in the way you stitch. Same thing every time, because if you don't, half of it will be straight and half of it would be angled. So remember that. Just be consistent. Takes a while. To do that stitch took me about 25 minutes. And I'm a plodder. I don't rush anything. I'm retired, kind of. So there you go. A leather sheath. Now you can make it for any knife. All you have to do. You will be safe out there when doing this. As far as that knife that I bought, kind of disappointed. Didn't cost me an arm and a leg. I think it was like $17 or something. But disappointing. 3 cuts and the tip broke. I think the tip was just too much. Maybe it's not designed for leather this thick. They're looking at thinner leather. I don't know. I think so, because the edging tool that cleans up the edges was very small. So disappointing. What do you do? I think I can fix that knife, maybe change the angle. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe. You know the story. We'll be back. Mary's starting to come out of a hibernation mode. Hopefully things will start warming up spring soon. We can get out and trudge and do all that good stuff. But I will tell you, I have a mail call coming. You just saw the last one. Hopefully it'll be out tomorrow. Awesome. Met a very nice gentleman, and interesting story. So look out for that one. Thanks for watching. Always appreciated. Mary and I will see you again soon.